The genres of sci-fi and horror dovetail into each other beautifully when done well, and cinema has proven that so many different times. Still, there have been those feature films where the world of sci-fi horror has gone a little too far for some audiences, whether that's in terms of violence or certain plot developments. Of course, some viewers will stomach the following scenes just fine, but they all certainly test whether an audience member will stick with the movie or simply find themselves wishing they put something else on. I'm Josh from Whatculture.com, and these are 8 sci-fi horror movies that went too far. Number 8, the finale, Under the Skin. Under the Skin is a truly uncomfortable movie for the majority of its run. About an alien who comes to Glasgow to prey on unassuming men, much of the flick was shot on the sly, with star Scarlett Johansson genuinely driving around the city in disguise and interacting with members of the public. There is a larger story, but it's mostly left ambiguous, with the emphasis being on tense surreal sequences where the alien uses its human form to lure naked men into a deep sea of black nothingness. That is, until the end, where the grim tale becomes a bit too grim for its own good. The flick finishes with the alien being brutally raped and assaulted by a nameless logger who, after he sees what's truly under the skin, sets his victim on fire. It's harrowing stuff, and not without a wider thematic message that it's presenting, but it's still unrelentingly grim from beginning to end and jarring compared to the rest of the flick, and has certainly soured many viewers on the horror overall. Number 7, a shark uses the oven, Deep Blue Sea. The concept of Renny Harlin's Deep Blue Sea is admittedly one that you have to take with a big pinch of salt, that being that sharks have become super intelligent after being used for Alzheimer's disease research. But there is one moment in particular that went way too far for even the biggest fans of this 1999 picture. That moment sees LL Cool J's Preacher, the research facility's cook, attacked by a shark in his own kitchen. Desperate to get away from his toothy foe as the facility continues to flood, Preacher takes residence in one of the kitchen's ovens. It's here that audiences get the groan-inducing shot of a shark turning on this oven as it attempts to force Preacher out into the open or bake him up real good. Now, throughout Deep Blue Sea, you can somewhat swallow the notion of these sharks hunting in packs, of them stalking their human prey and methodically trapping them, and you can just about let it slide when a shark taunts our core cast with the dying body of Stellan Skarsgård's Dr. Jim Whitlock. But to see a shark know how to work an oven, I don't know, man. That seems a bit too far even for this film. Number 6, Drill Dick, Tetsuo the Iron Man. Tetsuo the Iron Man is an absolutely bonkers movie about a dude transforming into a machine. Body horror perfection, the transformations on display are absolutely outrageous, with each body part becoming some kind of tool for wanton violence. And when I say each body part, well, I really do mean each body part. After returning home to his girlfriend, the man discovers that his penis has turned into a massive drill, after which we get an initially hilarious surreal scene where the guy tries to control his spinning boner that does give way to a pretty intense assault as he tries to catch his girlfriend and penetrate her with it. The tension here is real, and the filmmakers don't skimp on near misses of the drill just grazing its target. By the time the scene ends with the girlfriend killed after being impaled by it, you can't help but wonder how many viewers this scene completely lost. Combine this with an earlier dream sequence where the man has a giant metal phallus shoved up his bum, and Tetsuo the Iron Man certainly lives up to its controversial reputation. Number 5, wasting all the video game characters, the Resident Evil series. The Resident Evil franchise is pretty tough to hate. It's absolutely useless for the most part, and there's only really one good movie in the series that could be genuinely classed as being good and well made, but it's so dedicated to its insanity that you can't help but find each movie endearing. They're great popcorn flicks made by people who think continuity is just for fools. However, it's the blatant disregard for the source material where the franchise does go too far, specifically its treatment of iconic characters. Now, it's completely fine to go off the rails and do your own thing, but at its worst, Resident Evil tries to have its cake and eat it too, throwing in core video game characters to either do nothing or, worse still, just be cannon fodder. Everyone from Chris to Leon to Barry to Claire to Jill are all underutilized and sidelined to the point where it actually feels a little bit insulting, to be honest. Even worse, some of these characters are killed off screen between movies with barely a reference to their demise, which just blows. Number 4, Erica's Fate, Brightburn. From director David Yarovesky, 2019's Brightburn takes the classic Superman mythos and fascinatingly flips it on its head. Struggling to conceive, characters Kyle and Tori have their greatest wish granted when an alien infant crash lands in their backyard. Naming him Brandon, the story jumps 10 years ahead as the otherworldly being discovers his true origins. Influenced by the ship that brought him to Earth, Brandon starts to brutally terrorize his hometown of Brightburn using his Superman-esque abilities. Now, seeing Brandon at work can be quite the chilling sight, with him sinisterly killing his uncle, father, and mother, amongst others. And while this evil youngster is happy to slaughter his own family, there is a particularly vile fate handed out to Erica. See, Erica is the mom of a classmate whose hand Brandon spitefully broke. And after she makes it clear what she thinks of him, Brandon later stalks Erica at the diner where she works. Now initially, Brandon causes a light bulb to explode into Erica's face, forcing her to pull a slice of glass out of her eyeball. And while we never actually see her death, the finale of Brightburn shows the naked, disemboweled corpse of Erica hanging in the barn. Number 3, The Belly Bursters Alien vs. Predator Requiem. If you thought 2004's Alien vs. Predator was a particularly naff movie, then 20th Century Fox went and somehow topped that 3 years later with the awful Aliens vs. Predator Requiem. Directed by Greg and Colin Strauss, AVP Requiem was so poorly received by fans and critics alike that it nearly succeeded in killing off two of the most beloved sci-fi horror franchises in history. While the film itself is brutal in just how bad it is, one particular scene is brutal in how outright disgusting it is. The scene is the moment that the picture's Pred-Alien hybrid sets its sights on the heavily pregnant occupants of a hospital's maternity ward. In a totally gross move, we see this creature impregnate someone simply known as Sue with what's known as belly bursters. These belly bursters kill Sue's baby before then tearing their way out of her stomach in grisly fashion, all the while other traumatized pregnant women had to watch on, knowing they're next. It was gruesome, it was disturbing, and this act remains one of the most strikingly memorable moments, in the worst possible way, of an utterly unmemorable movie. Number 2, The Abduction Fire in the Sky. Fire in the Sky is a picture that doesn't quite get the love it deserves these days. Adapted from 1978's The Walton Experience book, where Travis Walton detailed his own purported real-life experience, Robert Lieberman's 1993 movie is one of the most impressive, impactful alien abduction films out there. What makes Fire in the Sky worthy of inclusion here, though, is just how intense its abduction scene is, and for how that sequence is made all the more jarring by how it compares to the rest of the picture. See, for the most part, this 93 film is a slow, methodical story that is largely ambiguous as to whether or not D.B. Sweeney's Travis really was prodded and probed by extraterrestrial beings. As we see a flashback of what supposedly happened to Travis, though, it's an aggressive, intense, truly invasive sequence that stays with you long after Fire in the Sky is finished. Here, Walton is dragged to an operating table, stripped, covered in a claustrophobic elastic sheet, has his throat forcefully, bloodily probed, and has his eyes pinned open. For those with an interest in the phenomena of alien abduction, Fire in the Sky's most memorable scene is very much a case of be careful what you wish for. Number 1, The Invisible Assault, Hollow Man. Released in 2000, Paul Verhoeven's Hollow Man clearly pulls a little inspiration from the classic tale of the Invisible Man, only adding a whole other level of creepiness to proceedings. It all starts relatively well in the film, with a group of scientists headed up by Kevin Bacon, Elizabeth Shue, and Josh Brolin developing a serum that makes the user invisible. Bacon's Sebastian Cain becomes the first human test subject of this serum, although he ends up going on a rampage of terror and murder once it becomes apparent that he is unable to be made visible once more. Where Hollow Man goes too far, though, is in how the invisible Sebastian creeps into the apartment of his neighbor and then brutally sexually assaults her. Any form of sexual assault in film is obviously awful and difficult to watch, but Hollow Man makes this act even more hideous in how it's carried out by an invisible attacker. One other element of Hollow Man that troubled audiences too is a scene where the enraged Sebastian callously murders an invisible dog. So yeah, it's no wonder that the director once told The Hollywood Reporter that Hollow Man was the, quote, first movie that I made that I thought I should not have made, end quote. So that's our list. Once you guys think down in the comments below, how do you feel about these specific scenes? Did they turn you off the movies? And are there any like this that I missed off here? While you're down there as well, could you please head over to Whatculture Horror for more lists like this on the regular? And even if you don't, I've been Josh, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.